things like that.
Yeah.
It's probably
Jordan Peele with you on that.
Yeah,
He just came out.
yeah. Jordan Peele's been really good recently. Just slasher stuff in general. It's pretty good.
Oh yeah, I love seeing people get splashed. Oh hey everybody.
Oh hello.
Oh, are we live? Hello everybody. Welcome to the Pocket Dimension Live, where us four ghoulies and ghoulettes like to get together and chat about weird things together, like TTRPGs and horror. Shall we roll the B-roll?
Oh, it's Fitz. That's who that was. I was unsure.
No, it is the Underlord. Our Dark Lord and Savior, Darth Fitz. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Pocket Dimension Live. I am Darth Fitz.
I am DigitalTwisted.
I am the light side, AK.
I am the dark side, EB.
What? Wait a minute.
Wait.
I've only just noticed something.
Yeah.
What?
Matt's not here.
And I'm in Evan's office. We're all discombobulated.
Are we in is this a different dimension? Is this a different pocket dimension which we have found ourselves in?
Sure it is.
We have shunted ourselves into a brand new pocket dimension, and I'm kind of here for it because it's a little bit loopy.
A little chaotic. But you know what?
That's a different dimension.
Yeah, that's not a
He's
different
in the
dimension.
Grand Canyon.
I know.
Yep.
Enjoying who in your chat has been to the... Oh, he's also in our chat.
Or is he still in DT's basement?
Oh, well...
I mean, he does have Wi-Fi down there, so...
Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon. Game hole.
There is a dark chasm down there that goes to parts unknown.
There it is. That's what I call...
Is your basement like the world between worlds in Star Wars? Like it just portals to places like Game Hole?
There may be some kind of portal, maybe.
Okay.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay.
Wait a minute. I've just seen something in the chat from Mike Spore.
What's that?
And then DigitalTwisted responded to it. Oh. You will not sully the name of Wawa. Not on my watch. Wawa is amazing. The food from Wawa is delicious. And you are not taking risks. Unless that risk involves things being delicious. I love Wawa.
I need some,
New Jersey is a very curious place. Let me talk to you guys about this for a minute. I can't get over in the year of our Lord 2024 the fact that I can't pump my own gas there. Because that just feels very old school to me. It makes me very uncomfortable.
My confession is that if I do have to drive, I will sometimes drive to Jersey just so I don't have to pump the gas.
It just... I don't know. There's something patriarchal feeling about not being able to pump your own gas. It harkens back to a time, like, y'all, when my grandfather died, my grandmother didn't know how to pump her own gas and, like, very timidly, like, asked me. And I've been places where, like, gentlemen have, like, been like, no, we pump for ladies. And New Jersey just feels like that whole vibe. Yeah, that literally a man said that to me, like, yeah, we pump for ladies.
I don't like that.
Exactly.
But I do like that in New Jersey, it's because it's a strong working labor force. That's why.
And they don't want to pay the insurance premiums for
it's why the gas is cheaper. Anyways, how are we talking about you know what? I'm going to find the segue here. Okay, we're talking about New Jersey, and we're going to be going to spooky things. Do I need to connect the dots for people?
I know. I'm right there with
New
you.
Jersey's just a different kind of horror.
Oh,
there it is. Thank you.
We love our Jersey faithful, Mike and Jax and Andy and Kelly.
Just stop trying to say that your pizza's better because it's not.
Anyways, but what was great?
I believe today we have a presentation that we are going to get through. Am I correct in that assumption?
We really have started something with these PowerPoints.
Yeah.
We have. I feel like we've hired DT as an outside contractor to come in and do like a training for us. This is a training session that we've had to sign up for, and you guys get to join as well.
Other
In many
companies
ways.
get, at certain kind of HR training that teaches you how to not, do and be sexually harassed in the workplace.
They get Sexual Harassment Panda. We get DT.
Digital
Yeah,
Twisted.
this is a very different type of sensitivity training. They're trying to teach you how to be more sensitive. I'm trying to teach you how to use those sensitivities to get at people.
Ooh.
So yes, we're coming up on what I'm guessing is many of the people, both here on the screen and here in the chat, favorite holiday.
I know it's about to be gone, and it makes me sad.
Oh.
I know. It'll be here and gone before we know it.
Let's play D&D right here, right now. New Jersey one shot. You find yourself on the streets of Newark at 2 a.m.
Girl, I have done that, and you know what the answer to that is? You just run. Wherever it is you're going, you're just running.
Take off. Just get out of there.
Oh, no.
Get out of there.
That's how I deal with Newark at 2 a.m.
Drew
What
is
are
saying,
you doing in Newark at 2 a.m.? That's
That's for, never mind. She heard that
Okay.
they pump for ladies in New
They
Jersey.
pump for ladies.
There it is. Look, you guys, I did a callback.
Good job.
Thank you.
Newark.
So, picture this. It's Newark, 2 a.m. We're playing Daggerheart.
Yeah.
Take us in.
Are you ready for your presentation, DT? Or
Sure, by all means.
was there a lead-in you wanted to give in how we kind of came up with this topic?
Well, I mean, with it being this the Halloween season and stuff like that, obviously AK's been running the Halloween one-shots this year to get things a bit spookier. And so we did get onto the conversation in Discord and beyond about how exactly you would go about making TTRPG scarier, and specifically Daggerheart, because it is so sort of light and airy and free. So it's like, how do you make something that is like that light and carefree scary? So we're going to attempt to do so.
Yeah, I think we've described it as being very bright and shiny
Yeah.
before.
Can you give me a range of how scary this is gonna get? Like, is this gonna get like Scooby Doo scary, or are we gonna go, The Exorcist? How deep are you gonna go?
Well, I would say maybe middle of the road, simply because, I mean, I actually start with a disclaimer on that, like, you need some very specific things for a TTRPG to even be scary. So you could have all the greatest ideas in the world, but if you don't have that, then it's not going to be scary. And so we will cover that as we go through.
Okay.
And yes, sound off in the chat, because I do see some friends who played with us, Fire Drake, Kelly, and others, on did I successfully scare you in Daggerheart, which was the goal all along.
I mean, I will chime in because I got to play and you got to murder me, which was wonderful.
Which was fun for both of us.
It was truly very, very fun. Dying in Daggerheart is quite fun.
Yes.
Can confirm. But yeah, I think you successfully pulled off making a bright and shiny game, dark and moody and misty. You set that setting quite well. Yeah.
I did it. Well, let's learn from the master then.
Master.
Master DT.
So yeah.
Do we need mood music here?
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
give us.
We can always get some
Okay.
mood music.
Yeah, you can add in some mood music if you want to do that before we begin.
Oh no, you go ahead, and I'll just jump in here with it.
No
Okay,
worries.
while you do
So-
that, Javelin says, I would say it was an intimidating encounter and certainly had a moody atmosphere. I don't know if I was scared, though. That's fair. That's very
Sure.
fair.
I was having too much fun to be scared. I will admit that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That's also fair.
That is also fair. Okay, so let's crack in. So making Daggerheart scarier, or indeed sort of any TTRPG, we will start with the disclaimer as I talked about. So none of the things in these slides, either on their own or collectively, will necessarily make anything scary. If you want to run or play in a scary game, a lot of it's going to come down to the GM, but also the players. Maybe even more importantly, the players.
Yep.
And the setting and atmosphere that you co-create around the game, whether it be online or around the table. I've seen...
100%.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you've had experience with this, DT.
Well, yeah, this is exactly it. I mean, I've seen firsthand that so-called scary TTRPGs, they fall flat in terms of their scariness, because if the players just treat it like, your standard session of D&D or whatever, then they're never going to be scared because they're not immersing themselves in it.
Right.
There needs to be buy-in from all involved. A session 0 or some kind of pre-game discussion is crucial, in my opinion, if you want to play scary. It's easy to play flippant and jokey, but it's a real test of a player's RP ability, for me, to believably play scared or emotional, because they have to be invested in it. Movies and video games can scare us because we're seeing and hearing things that are designed specifically to scare us.
Yep.
But can you allow yourself to be scared simply by your GM's words and by your own imagination? That's what's going to make or break whether it's scary or not.
Yeah, and if you just come in and you're cracking jokes and sort of, bringing the Doritos to the party, then nothing wrong with Doritos, but you're not fully buying in, and you're not going to be scared, and you're going to not facilitate an environment for the others at the table to also.
That's it. You've got to buy into it. You've got to embrace the atmosphere. You've got to immerse yourself, because being truly scared from a TTRPG might not even be possible for some people. The best that you might be able to hope for is creepy. But if you can get creepy, then that's also good, because that's better than the standard jokey way. And a GM can provide a creepy soundtrack and give creepy stroke scary descriptions, but you have to buy in and you have to immerse yourself in it, or it's not going to be scary to you. So that's my disclaimer right up top.
So if you roll up a knife-wielding pumpkin, for example... I'm kidding.
But see, it's how you play it, though.
Exactly.
It's how you play it. You could choose to play that jokey.
Creepy child thing. So even though you're a pumpkin, you're coming in and you're creepy by being a little too.
Long live Jackie Pumpkin.
Long live Jackie
$1
Pumpkin.
million idea, you guys.
Oh yeah.
So, and we talked a little bit about this maybe a few weeks ago, where what if you could do scary RPGs in a scary location like that, like the mood and the ambiance might make it scarier.
Mm-hmm.
But let me yes and that and say, RPG in a location meets haunted corn maze with the people who jump out at you. So
no.
yes,
No,
you have
no.
to. You have to do it.
The jump scare is the one thing that I cannot do the jump scare. But I will very happily play any game or go to any creepy, we could go to the creepy doll trail and play there. Play by a fire, but I can't do the jump scare. I will shit
We can
myself.
do that, and I'm gonna hire people to jump out.
No! Find a new friend.
Matt has
Evan
laid
makes
down
a
the
good
no
point.
LARPing law, though. So
Yeah,
what Matt
no
says
LARPing.
goes.
Yeah.
Sorry, Evan's point.
Yeah, Evan makes a good point in that again, it comes back to that atmosphere. So obviously, if you go to play in person in a creepy location and add in things around that to add to the atmosphere, that helps get you in that zone where you can be scared. But-
Maybe the Mammoth Cave Network?
Ooh.
Well, potentially. There's nothing
I'd be
scarier
down.
than trying to roll some dice, in a crucial moment when you've got Kentucky Gerblins chasing you.
No. I did see someone say that apparently we should play in Camden, New Jersey. That's actually scary. Fun fact, that's where Critical Role's gonna have their Christmas bonanza show. The opposite of scary.
Well, I'm sure whatever outfit Sam turns up in will probably be scary in some way.
There we go.
It's very fair.
But in terms of here we are in 2024 when it comes to atmosphere, and obviously a lot of us are playing online, again, it helps to sort of set the mood. So it's there's some people who I won't watch a scary movie in the dark type of thing. Whereas if you're going to play a TTRPG online on your favourite VTT or on Discord or whatever, set that mood, play in the dark, so that you can just with a small spotlight in your dice, for example, and just help set that mood for yourself. Everything you can do to help yourself get in that headspace will add to potentially being scary. And you can shake your head all you want. You sat and watched Alien in the dark with me, Alison, so you're perfectly capable of doing it.
DT, can you confirm that Alien is in fact a scary movie?
It's...
It would have. Was. It used to be.
Yeah, back in the day, obviously, it is a bit dated now, but it's got sort of jump scares, and it's maybe a bit more psychological horror with a sci-fi element and stuff like that. But it's not straight up you're running away from a murderer type of slasher type thing. So there are scares in it, but would you say it's a full-on scary movie? I'd probably say it's just more... Some of the later ones, sci-fi action, maybe the first couple you could maybe say sci-fi with hints of horror, but full-on scary?
Now, in Alien's defense, though,
I'm sorry.
that the only game that I've ever played where I was starting to feel legitimately a little afraid was when we did play Alien.
Was Alien. Yep.
So
And if we do play Alien again for the Hive, then obviously we can play it like, with that atmosphere and stuff like that, and see how we can do. I was actually showing Alison Soundpad, which might help with things.
I need to play inside a vacuum.
So Matt, a few comments ago, made a point about like our characters are built to be invincible, right? And that is one of the things that might make buy-in hard. So maybe horror does have a better play. By the way, I love that we haven't even made it past the disclaimer yet.
I know.
I'm obsessed with all of this. But Dan, I think this is a really good point. Would a random pre-made character help with the vibe? I mean, it's kind of like what we have gone out of our way to roll up creepy one-shot characters. Meet McSlurry, anyone? Jackie Pumpkin, anyone? So I kind of buy into that maybe when it's not something you're so familiar with and have worked so hard to make powerful in some way, but it's just kind of like a throwaway.
Well, that calls back to the Alien RPG as well, because their equivalent of one shots, the cinematics, they give you specific characters and you're taking on the role of that character, and you're only really supposed to roll up your own characters in that game if you're actually playing campaign mode.
Yeah, and I would say, like, talking about the buy-in and this disclaimer, that if we truly said, hey, we're going to play a game, we want it to be scary, fully buy into it, I would not be coming rolling up with Jackie Pumpkins. I would come up with something that is more realistic and that maybe I would be afraid to lose. Yeah. Because the one downside with pre-gens is that I'm not always afraid to lose them.
Kelly says Kai's character. Kai did come in with one of the creepier characters I've ever, but again, creepy, not scary. Kai's character had a host of family members who have passed on beyond the veil, playing with them.
Nice.
And we got to do some amazing things, especially in the final boss battle with them. Nice. But yeah, I definitely agree with you that I found Alien the RPG to be a lot scarier than Alien or Aliens. That's as far as I've made it into my Alien journey.
Well, that's good to know then, that the Alien game is scarier for you than the movie. So
we'll get Daggerheart there too, though. We'll get it.
So
nice.
On that note, let's try. So what I've put together today is 7 ideas to make your game scarier. Now, this list is not exhaustive, obviously. It was just 7 ideas that came to me when I was in the headspace and thinking about what I could do for the presentation today. So I'm sure as we go through, all the creative juices flowing out in the minds of the TPD chat, both live and in the comments later, I'm sure you'll have even more ideas that come to you. But let's go through the 7 that I came up with to begin with. And idea number 1 is the slow descent into darkness. So gradually introducing eerie elements that feel out of place in the otherwise whimsical world of Daggerheart. And I've got a couple of examples of exactly what I mean of the slow descent. So first up, light-hearted areas turning dark. So the party could be in a colourful forest and slowly the colours become muted, the trees twist unnaturally, and the familiar friendly creatures now seem unsettling. And we in TPD have seen examples of like this. AK did something very much like this in this month's one-shots, and Matt's done something very similar in the campaign that we're playing for the Astral Sea patrons. So we've seen great examples of that. Another example, though, is also giving the players a slow loss of control. So light magic spells that were once reliable flicker or fizzle out in strange ways. Skills or powers that once worked easily now seem to have unpredictable, sometimes harmful results. And this can take the magic in Daggerheart to be more like the wild magic sorcerer from D&D. So perhaps as a GM you can roll up your own wild magic table, except it's a lot darker and creepier results. Or if you want to dig down into the detail even more, what you could do as a GM when you're preparing your scary game of Daggerheart is you could look at what effects you specifically want to happen on certain spells. And I picked out 2 at random from the wizard in Daggerheart to see what you could do with it. So telepathy, for example. With telepathy, normally in the game, that's just setting up a line of easy communication between you and a party member, or indeed anyone. So why not twist it so that when you activate telepathy, now you hear everything and it's deafening to you and unusable? Or maybe instead of hearing the living, you hear the wails of restless spirits all around you. And the second one was mysterious mist. Now, normally that creates a fog cloud that conceals the party and it helps you stealth along, but maybe instead of hiding the party, as well as doing that, it also now burns like acid, damaging the party as they pass through it. And it doesn't have to be limited to magic. Even player abilities of non-casters could have unintended consequences or side effects. So how imaginative and how dark you get with it is entirely up to you as a GM. And that's why the session 0 is important. Discuss with your table beforehand. What are the X cards? How far can you go? How scary, how dark can it be? And once that's decided, the sky's the limit as a GM on how you twist the game to suit your narrative.
Well, and kind of hearkening back to Matt's PowerPoint from a few weeks back about, the GM equals God. I know that that's not really the point, but because I've actually had I have messed with players' magic. Oh no. Okay, it's back. I have messed with players' magic before and they have not appreciated it. So I think that that's especially important to have maybe even in that session 0 of we're going to go to weird places together, you guys. At the end of the day, I'm here to provide an experience for you, and you got to trust me and go with it, because especially in one-shots when you don't have that rapport developed yet, I've had people get pretty spicy with me when I'm the magic fizzles out, and they're like, but I rolled, and things like that. So
yeah, definitely having that conversation beforehand. Yeah. I mean, this sort of reminds me I don't want to spoil anything from Critical Role, but when they go to AOR, whenever they get anywhere near that sort of area, magic, especially at higher levels, can be dangerous. Yeah. So, but just, again, have that discussion maybe with your players beforehand.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that loss of control with our magic or anything, as you say, discuss it beforehand, agree to it, make sure that they're okay with it. But taking that control away from them, they have to understand when you're going to play a scary game, you're not taking it away because you're fudging a roll or you're just being a dick. You're taking the control away because it's the scenario. And when they suddenly lose that power that they think they have, that's what can bring the scare level up as they slowly descend into it. So
I love that Matt is now discovering things he should have been doing in Barovia for the past. You don't have to take this word as law, Maddie. It's okay.
Well,
you took away our druid's ability to wild shape. That's enough from you, okay?
For 3 years.
I mean, the man's already said he might want to restart running it, so I've just given him my ideas now. So, but carrying on then to idea number 2.
Oh, no more creepy dolls.
Yeah, which is whimsical but creepy antagonists. So taking the playful energy of Daggerheart's NPCs and twisting it slightly. And so a few examples of this can include toy makers with a dark side. A seemingly friendly village of toy makers who create living toys, but soon the toys begin to act on their own, sometimes with murderous tendencies. And of course, we've got prime examples of this in other media, running the gamut from an actual living murderous doll like Chucky, and you can take that all the way to the seemingly innocuous haunted dolls like Annabelle. Even just kids can make something infinitely creepier. If you go into a seemingly normal village, but suddenly people are disappearing and this quaint little town is now abandoned except for 1 or 2 children. They might be perfectly normal children, but that's creepy. And a second example, jester villains. A band of colourful acrobatic jesters who seem playful but speak in cryptic riddles and appear out of nowhere. Their jokes become increasingly unsettling and they can warp reality around them to make nightmarish landscapes. So again, sky's the limit as a GM. As you look through the Daggerheart book, look at all the adversaries and think, well, how can I take that and make it creepy? How can you take a standard NPC and twist it to make it creepy? There's so many just little changes that you can do that make things infinitely creepier and scarier for the party.
Fire Drake says, I read murderous tentacles at the end of Toy Makers with a Dark Side.
Murderous tentacles works too. We've seen that.
It really
EK's used them to full effect.
It reminds me a little bit of, again, I don't really want to spoil anything. I don't know how we've gotten through so much of Strahd. I've only ever had the windmill was the only thing that's been spoiled for me. Everything else has been fine. But the adventure begins in the death house, and there's like a creepy doll that follows you there. And there's something about that really does set the tone of like, something about a doll not acting the way that it should. That'll boost the fear factor.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, or Matt just said a village filled with people that just smile all the time.
Matt got me in the murder house too, not just with the doll, but there were portraits who, like, you know, if you either had a high enough passive perception or rolled high enough, realized that their gaze was following you throughout the rooms, and that scared the hell out of me.
There's just stuff like that. It's like take the extra 5 minutes to describe something acting the way that it shouldn't. True.
Absolutely.
That's fine.
It sounds like a game of Clue. It was Matthew Bivens in the murder house with the creepy doll.
Honestly, that checks out.
So, on to idea number 3 then. Twisting familiar elements. So, the key to making something light turn scary is to distort something players take for granted. So, for example, corrupt tree ants. If tree ants are seen as gentle protectors, perhaps some of them become twisted by dark magic, branches rotting, eyes glowing eerily, their once benevolent actions turning into threats. And this applies for any of the sort of friendly NPCs or creatures in your world. If you've established a world where, you know, the party knows that this group or these animals, these creatures, they're friendly, they're benevolent, they're no harm, and suddenly they are, it just makes that little twist that turns things. And again, all these things can potentially work together as you're making that slow descent. Perhaps they start to notice that the woodland creatures are suddenly more aggressive, and then their magic stops working, and you can build and build up that tension. Or perhaps you can make friendly NPCs disappear. A well-known village or town, once a place of joy and respite, could fall into a strange silence, with the inhabitants missing or acting like ghostly versions of their former selves. And here's where we can take a little bit of an example from the other media like video games. So, learning from Silent Hill. I've recently been playing through the Silent Hill 2 remake, which is fantastic, and it's a prime example of how setting an atmosphere can be totally different with one small change. The town presented in the game is covered in a thick fog, so you can never really see more than 10 to 20 feet in front of you, and the town's inhabitants have vanished bar a small handful of NPCs, and it's an absolute creepshow. But when you mod the game, as modders have, and remove the fog, it's back to being a quaint little lakeside town, and walking around it's not creepy in the slightest. And you can bring that into your game as a GM, so when a party enters a village, instead of describing the village as it normally would, and this would maybe work even more if they've previously been there, if there's a fog that means they can't see 10 feet in front of their face, they don't know what's just behind them, what's just to the side of them, what's just in front of them. Perhaps they start hearing whispers, noises, all sorts of things. And as someone who has GM'd, it also takes away everyone going, I've got dark vision, because it doesn't work with fog. And as a little side note, AK will be delighted to know that while it's obviously not a real place, Silent Hill, and is based on Centralia, Pennsylvania, in the game's lore, Silent Hill is located in Maine. So maybe that's a new vacation spot for you, AK.
Oh, no.
Look,
there are some very creepy parts of Maine, and that's okay.
I was going to say our Lord and Savior. Well, no, not our Lord and Savior, but our creep in chief, Stephen King, main guy. So
it's true.
You know, there's some creepy spots up there.
Absolutely. So idea number 4 then are sudden shifts in tone. A sudden event can shock players and turn the tone darker without warning. So keep in with the themes of Silent Hill. we can go through different things like fey magic gone wrong. So a spell or magical artifact that was supposed to bring about a harmless prank goes horribly awry, summoning a dark force or entity that begins tormenting the party with cruel and grotesque tricks. The party in the build-up to this can think that they've done everything right, they've done everything asked of them, but something just doesn't quite go right and everything takes a turn for the worse. Or, going back into the dreamscapes turn into nightmares, characters might enter a dream world where everything seems absurdly fun and playful, but the deeper they go, the more sinister things become. Playful creatures start to speak in menacing tones, and dreamlike landscapes turn into eerie, twisted versions of their earlier form. And this is what Silent Hill does very well, because in Silent Hill, there's the real world, there's the fog world, and then there's Otherworld. So the fog world is the town that we see most of the time in the game. It's a mostly abandoned, fogged-covered version of the real world. The other world, however, is a twisted, almost mirror world of the real, and where once a normal corridor with carpet and wallpaper is instead now made of concrete and rusted latticed metal, or in some of the even creepier sections, the walls are literally made of sewn-together flesh. How creepy and scary you make it, and how you theme it, is up to you. And these shifts between the two worlds in the game are often accompanied by sirens, and you could have your own audio cues in your game. So the first time that you take your party to one of these other worlds, you can play a specific audio cue, and that sets them up so that once they have a terrible time there, the first time they go there, and make it back safely, the next time you drop them in there, you just play that audio cue.
Are you
And it all comes
suggesting
rushing
a
back.
Pavlov
I'm
response?
about to say, are we having
in your
Pavlovian
game?
responses to wow, dark.
I love it. I love
Can
it.
I just say that he's here. Tabletop Phoenix is the master of turning dreamscapes to nightmares. In our campaign, we're in the Feywild, and he will bring out these creatures that, like, at first glance seem so lovely and playful, and then they just go horrifically wrong. So I've seen this in action, and it does work incredibly well.
Yeah,
Good
absolutely.
job, TTP.
And I hope this isn't something that you have on your presentation, and I'm just going to spoil it. But speaking of dreamscapes and nightmares, one of the ways that you can do it, and one way that Matt did early on in our Barovia game, is maybe foreshadow or twist your player character's insecurities by giving them nightmares. Like turn long rests into something scary. In the sense of narrating their own dreams and how messed up they are, and make it really tailored to that character.
Absolutely. And you could even take that one step further and go down that chain and turn it into that Nightmare on Elm Street type of thing, where it's when you fall asleep that you go into that other world where the scarier things are. And so then even wanting to take a long rest becomes something that the party doesn't want to do because they know things are going to get even harder if they do.
Man, I spent a lot of time as a child being scared of dumb things and like refusing to sleep for days on end. So then my parents were having to deal with like however many points of exhaustion, scared version of little baby Allison. Those weren't good years.
Oh, and there's an idea too, is that maybe what it is not every person in the party gets a nightmare, but maybe the GM rolls for someone to get a nightmare. They get a nightmare and they're in some way, I hate to use the term punished for it, but like you take a point of exhaustion, or in Daggerheart you can only do, you only can get one thing instead of two, or you can only heal X number of hit points instead of the whole way, or something, like just to give stakes to a long rest in a way that feels spooky.
Yeah. Absolutely. See, this is what I was talking about. The creative. Once you start hearing ideas, the creative juices got going, and then you've got your own ideas of how you can twist these worlds and stuff like that.
I would very much like to issue a challenge to Matt. I know we've been talking about Barovia a lot, and Matt said I could run Barovia again. I could run Curse of Strahd again. It would be a completely different game. Let's do it in Daggerheart and creepier. Okay, go.
So what you're saying is that Strahd is going to be our comfort game that we re-watch, replay over
How
and over.
ADHD of me, huh?
Look, I did, candidly,
Okay.
speaking of spooky things, I did
Okay.
tell a trainer at the gym I'm going to that The Last of Us is my comfort watch, and the look that he gave me was like, I am worried for you.
I'm not. It's very on brand.
Yep. Anyways, continue, DT. Sorry to derail.
Well,
but-
just before we do continue, if I have been able to set up my audio routing correctly, you should be able to hear this when I click. It will pick up all my audio though, so just let it play out. But this is what they hear in Silent Hill when they go between the worlds, if this works. I hope you heard that.
yeah, heard it.
There you
Don't
go.
love it.
Yeah, and so that'll play on repeat for maybe up to like 20, 30 seconds as you transitions between the worlds, and you end up in something that looks like this horrible place. The difference
Talk about
between
a
the real
Pavlovian
world,
response.
yeah,
You
the
hear that,
difference
you know that you're about to be scared.
Yup.
yeah, that's it. It's not a nice place to be, and it's where all the bad things happen. And so kind of programming that into your players as well can kind of amp up the fear a little bit. So the other world in Silent Hill's example is a twisted mirror world, and so it's really like the absolute creepiest version. So there's like the real world, there's the fog world, which makes it a little bit creepy, and then you delve even further into the other world. And you know, we've seen with like Marvel and the multiverses and stuff like that, there's, you know, as a GM, the sky's the limit with your imagination. You can have as many levels down that rabbit hole as you want to go, and as your players are comfortable playing with. So moving on to the next idea, which is idea number 5. Psychological horror in a light
In
setting.
a light setting.
Yes.
A
Even
little
in a
light
light
psychological horror.
A little
Yeah.
light psychology. Just a little bit on the side.
Just like a side of trauma. No big deal.
Yeah. Just a smidge. So even in a light and breezy world like Daggerheart, you can play with the fear of unknown and doubt. And a couple of examples that you could use in your games: distorted realities. Players could encounter alternate versions of their own characters, or experience moments of deja vu where reality seems to glitch. Strange symbols or messages appear in places they recognize but are wrong or reversed. Paranoia and isolation. Something or someone is following the party, always just out of sight. It might be a shadow or a whispering voice. The longer it remains hidden, the more paranoid the players feel, until the characters are unsure of who or what to trust. And if you're using the kind of example of like the fog world and stuff like that, if you've built up this paranoia with the shadow and the whispering voice beforehand, and then suddenly the fog rolls in, it just makes it all the worse. You know, if the party has already seen alternate versions of themselves, for example, then they're hearing whispers, and you as the GM then create scenarios where the party gets separated. Once they find their compatriots again, can they be sure it's really them? Perhaps you can even go one step further and have co-conspirators in cahoots in the party. Using private chats or a whispers channel means you can have some fun with it and describe to the separated members how the rest of the party are going to encounter the alternate versions of themselves while you are separated, and have them play those alternate versions as they please, or perhaps with a hidden agenda, and shout out to Alien RPG for that one with the hidden agendas.
Yep.
Yeah,
Who would-
yeah, separating the group isn't... I was thinking that too, that like that is a way to really instill fear. And there's so many ways you could do it, either with the threat of a doppelganger. Another kind of trope that I love when you separate a group in a scary scenario is when people go to find each other, and you like... It's almost like an upside down world where player 1 is in this closet, player 2 opens that closet door and nothing's in there because they're on like different layers and dimensions or whatever. So like playing around with a fog rolling in and separating the party, or you wake up from a long rest not where you were, anything like that, just like being alone and not sure who to trust, and like oh that's so good.
Absolutely. I mean, don't split the party is a trope for a reason. 99% of parties will choose not to split. So put them in scenarios where they don't have a choice. Maybe there's a sudden rock slide and half the party gets carried down, and they have to take an upper and a lower path. And, you know, we see it in video games all the time. So just use your imagination. Think of ways to separate them. Maybe you can get them all alone individually, or split the party in half. Again, it's the GM's imagination and how you want to take it and how you want to twist it.
You're giving Matt too many ideas.
Truth.
I need to ask you to stop now.
Well, unfortunately, I can't stop because we need to move on to idea number 6, which is light-hearted scares turning deadly.
Ooh.
So, at first, the scares could seem like pranks or maybe even minor nuisances, but over time, they become lethal. And a couple of
Ooh.
examples of that could be living objects. Books, chairs, and dishes begin to move on their own, at first clumsy and harmless, but as time goes on, they actively try to trap or harm the players. I mean, mimics are obviously a big thing for D&D, but how often do people... You know, I've had parties where they're convinced that every chair they see is, oh, it's a mimic, has to be a mimic, and they have to spend hours checking it. Well, you know, sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't, and sometimes the whole room is a mimic, and you walked in without even realising.
So we're already wary of doors, and now you also want us to be wary of chairs?
How critical role of us.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Or, as another example, maybe you can use deadly festivals. So the characters might come across a vibrant carnival-like atmosphere with strange games and contests, but soon realise the stakes are deadly. The festival could be run by supernatural entities who view mortal life as entertainment, and these carnival games are not quite what they seem.
I'm laughing because a few months back, after I'd been running patron one-shots for about a year, Matt came to me and was like, I love you, but you have to stop starting the one-shots at a festival, because for like 8 months straight, there was some town celebration that everyone was called to, and then that's where shenanigans and hijinks broke out. But if I make the festival itself the killer, I wonder if Matt will let me put him back in.
Look, Matt, I'm sorry, but Saigea is Stars Hollow. Okay, there is
Yeah.
a festival for
It's
everything.
a festival kind of a place, yeah. Yeah, it's your fault. Thanks, Vince.
You're
You're to have my
welcome.
back.
It is that kind of place. So, idea number 7, dark fables. Introducing scary folk tales or legends into the game's lore. Now, the obvious example of this would of course be cryptids, considering how into cryptids we've been with Bud and Herb, but because we're so into cryptids, that's an idea we all know and love, so I thought of a couple of other ideas to go along with cryptids. And so those could be the Whispering Woods, a cheerful forest by day that turns deadly at night, where travellers hear their names whispered in the wind by unseen creatures, but anyone who listens too long begins to disappear or lose their sense of reality.
So, Appalachia.
Yeah, Appalachia, basically. Or the Pied Piper's Curse. A charming bard could be using music to influence creatures and people alike, pulling them into a state of hypnotic bliss, but those who follow the music eventually walk off cliffs or into dangerous traps without realising it. But I do
That's-
have one final bonus idea, which is technology.
Before we go past that, I will say that last one also speaks to potentially what I like is the delayed consequences. You know, you go somewhere, you touch something you shouldn't, you interact with an NPC that goes wrong, you roll a check and it fails, but nothing happens immediately. Nothing like instilling some paranoia of like, okay, just saying okay, I'm
Yeah.
moving on, and then like 3 weeks later, you
that's
walk off a
one
cliff.
one of the basic GM sort of tricks to use. Just even if absolutely nothing is happening, just roll some dice.
Just
What are you rolling for? Never mind.
Nothing. None your
Wicked.
business.
So yeah, the final bonus idea is technology, and if all else fails, then you can use technology, and you can just simply ask your party something like, "Oh, I don't know,
Do you want to play a game?
Yes.
So, with all that said, like I say, I'm sure all of you out there have many of your own ideas, and so please get in the chat, please get in the comments of the video after the live is finished and let us know your scariest ideas. And I'll leave you with a quote from one of my most famous compatriots here in Scotland: "Where there is no imagination, there is no horror." Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And so that just leaves me with the task of thanking our team here at TPD once again for having me here on the live. So thank you to Alison Kendrick, thank you to Anna Fitzgerald, And thank you to Evan Bivens.
Dead inside.
Checks
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Amazing.
Thank you.
I love it. I love it. You know, the best part about this too is that those tips will work for just about any game you
Yeah.
play. But yeah, I mean, I think it just goes to show that if we're specifically talking about Daggerheart, basically all the tips that you gave were really like about setting and how the interpersonal relationships exist at the table. That especially with a game like Daggerheart that is so imagination based and so collaborative and so instilled with just the storytelling factor, that it's the buy-in and that you in control of the environment and the setting and how you and your characters and your GM interact with each other. You have the power to creep yourselves out.
Absolutely, and I did try to make this so that it was like platform agnostic, so to speak, so that you could take these ideas into any game. But one specific for Daggerheart is obviously the connection questions. So our good friend Rice Combo from Bladebound Saga has really expanded the connection questions, and he's got a big Word document with loads of different questions and new questions that aren't on Demiplane or in the Daggerheart book. So if you're running a scary game, maybe you can twist those connection questions as well to create creepier connections between your players, or maybe they put doubts in the player's mind of what actually is this connection and is everything as it seems.
Yeah.
And we
even make the connections a little bit more private between folks.
We did, before we had connections questions, which I love, and I do love that Bladebound starts every session, both D&D now and Daggerheart, with those connection, like kind of the campfire warm-up time. In our Barovia game and other games we play together, we do have a roll table, just where you roll a D100. But I think that we could flex some muscles there and collectively come up with, or just task Matt with doing it, because he always needs more work to do, coming up with a more horror and like why are you asking me that? Tay was always good at that as well. Like Tay would he would very specifically ask questions, that seemed very innocent. It would be like, what is your character's greatest fear? And then like weave that into the session itself, where suddenly you were trapped alone with the thing that your character feared the most, which always sent me into a sense of real fun panic.
Yes, and though it also makes it more satisfying, and like you can really build a relationship with your character and the other characters at the table. And there's a way in which that I think only scarier or horror based games can do that. Because you're having to dig a little bit deeper into your and your character's psyche.
For sure.
Yeah.
I almost want to like come back at this. We all need more work to do, clearly, because I think that there is a difference when we talk about building horror for one-shots versus campaigns. Like there's a lot that we can do as we get to know each other and deepen, these connections and things like that. But like, what are the light things, the fun, like in-session callbacks that we can do beyond just me like showing y'all a scary picture and having a scary battle map and a scary monster to really kind of like sow those seeds of doubt. One way is what we did last weekend, which is we had someone in the party be on my side. Being in cahoots is always fun. Fitz wasn't having it, but
I was perfectly having it. Y'all are so sus. Like
demon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. For those who played in the 2 earlier sessions of the one shot, DT played twice. So played as a player the first time, and the second time played as the big bad. And that was incredibly fun. And we'll have to do a follow-up video to this. We were also testing the boundaries of co-DMing in a system like Daggerheart, which at first glance, it doesn't look like that you'd be able to do with things like the Hope and Fear system.
Right.
But actually, I thought worked out incredibly well.
Yeah. And as a player in that situation, I thought it was quite seamless in that you, AK, as the sort of like we'll call them the mechanic GM,
Yeah.
you would just tell DT, okay, I'm spending this now. You have 2 action tokens.
Yep.
Go. And then DT, you got to sort of bring in okay, at this point, this is what has happened on the board, and this is who's been aggravating me. I'm going to do this and this. And that I thought actually worked out quite seamlessly.
Yeah. So if
I'm glad it seemed that way because I was panicking inside.
Oh,
it,
you were
it
doing
worked
great.
out
Are you
nicely.
kidding?
You did a good
you
job.
You were doing so
Yeah.
great. Except for the part where I gave you like a really beefy attack and you just ignored it for the first half of the battle, and I had to DM you and be like, "Hey, bite
It's
them."
like, I can bite things, and then I killed Fitz with it.
Yeah, but that's okay. Now you have to forever be in a pocket dimension with Jackie Pumpkins as your
That's
best
true. Oh, true horror. But
Poor
that
Void
really
Bringer.
is my biggest, like, for those of you out there who, like me, are not necessarily naturally great at or even all that interested in horror, just bring in a buddy. Just get somebody who is good at it and collaborate with them. It's way more fun for you because GMs do have to sit in a silo so much. Matt and I have also we haven't like co-GM'd before, but we have co-written encounters and then both run one-shots. But yeah, I would say, like, if you can find a buddy and like 2 heads are always better than 1.
I noticed a comment in the chat a little while ago from Daniel. Daniel Grace. He said, "What is your character's greatest fear?" Seems like an innocent question, but that is another one where, and I think a lot of GMs don't do this, and I think it's why it's one of the many reasons why the likes of Matt Mercer get so much props, because when you really think about it, when you're playing through your TTRPG games, a long rest is treated as a button click. Whereas Matt treats long rests as RP time for the party around the campfire, and it's where natural in-character RP conversations can take place. So in many ways, the GM doesn't even have to ask direct questions like that, because if you're playing in a long-term campaign and you're allowing the players to really embody their characters and really give them opportunities to play those characters and interact with the other party members at a character level rather than an above the table level, conversations like that, they naturally occur because ultimately you may have difficulty in acting and playing a character, but you're still a human being and you're used to having human conversations. So when you're in that mood and in that character of, I'm sitting around a campfire, what do you do around a campfire? We tell ghost stories and we talk about things that we're scared of and stuff like that. So if you give the players opportunities to role play, things like that could come out, and then you as a GM can just go, your character's scared of that, is it? That's going in the back pocket. And you don't need to ask those direct questions. They don't even know they've told you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can also, what I love, and I'm gonna double down on this like fireside chat thing as well.
Yeah.
Make time in your games, in your long campaigns, even if it's, just like a medium long one. If you're playing a 6-week adventure, whatever, make the time and the space to have those campfire conversations, because not only for your GM do those conversations come up naturally for them to use against you, but also you can really form connections player to player, character to character, that then when you're in things like, because we've also talked about how like mechanics can get in the way of making things scary, but regardless of what system you're playing with, like we've discussed, can D&D fundamentally be scary? Probably not, unless you add in high stakes personal connection. If you, like, I'll use our Barovia game as an example. AK, your character is in a relationship with Irina. If Irina is threatened, if Irina goes down, if Irina gets turned, if something happens to her, you're compromised. You're not going to be making rational decisions. And that's scary for you, being on your, back foot, and then for the rest of the party who's relying on you to act a certain way. So by forming these relationships as a GM, you can use them against your players. Like if you know that these 2 characters are besties, do something to one if you want to get to the other. And use, it also makes things more interesting as a player too, because you're like, oh shit, I'm not just going to do my game book. Like I got to save this person. It adds goals to the combat too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this
Going
all
going
started.
quickly back to Daniel again, sorry. Just to his follow-up comment there about how even when GMs give players the opportunity, in his experience, a lot of time players won't take that, and I do 100% agree with that, and I think that's a mix of. Obviously some players who maybe they're new, maybe they are a bit more experienced, but they haven't really been given the chance to fully roleplay. Like I know when I played with my old group, they really were more just interested in the rolling dice and the hitting things. It wasn't really about the roleplay. So getting opportunities to actually roleplay were few and far between. And so when people haven't had opportunities to do it, they will be more kind of standoffish and they won't. So it's like everything around the table. You've got to have co-buy-in, you've got to have an atmosphere for it. The GM has to give you the opportunities and you have to take the opportunities. And I think a lot of parties, they're just so pre-programmed to not take those opportunities because they're just not used to getting them. So yeah, it's definitely a balance needs to be found.
Which is why every party needs a ringer, especially for one shots. Like I've always said, like, play with people at the table who are better than you. And so especially like when we were first starting our patron one shots, for example, I always made sure that Matt, Evan, or Fitz could be at the table for that reason, because that behavior would encourage more of the same. Whereas if it's a bunch of people who don't know each other, people who are brand new to the game and don't know what's possible, it is really hard to have somebody look at you and be like, and what do you do? And to want to say anything but like, I pick up my sword,
Right.
So I get both sides, but ringers are very helpful.
Ringers are helpful. I think another thing, because I'm looking at some of the follow-up from Daniel as well, saying that he mostly plays with newer players. Another thing you could consider in that way is that, like with Daggerheart, for example, you have the connection questions. So especially as a GM, if you know how people have responded to that, maybe you could ask a follow-up question just to start it, like break the ice. We also love D100 tables. If your full table is new, maybe you don't have a ringer. If maybe ultimately that group would enjoy RP, because also disclaimer, not every group wants to do that. Like DT, your old group, it's perfectly fine if people just want to roll dice, take down a sack of hit points and then move on. That's a totally valid way to play as well. But if you know and you can sense that your table would benefit and enjoy role playing, you can start by injecting questions. Ask, roll on a D100. Like, okay, we're at our campfire. Let's roll on our campfire, our list, and then just talk about that. Have there be some icebreakers, and then over time it'll get more natural.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's hard when you're new to the game and playing a new character. Bladebound had to do that with our Exandria campaign. Even though it's a campaign of all seasoned players, none of us felt that we were in the headspace of our characters quite yet.
Yeah.
And so for like our campfire moments, he did have to like, okay, I'm going to start you guys off with a question. And then that would usually get us going.
Which is also true, even with veteran players, if it's a brand new character, especially if you're trying something that's not in your comfort zone, it may be a little bit harder to just start.
Yeah.
Dipping your toe into the deep end of RP, so having some fallback questions.
That's what I get for trying my hand at a lawful good player who was gentle and judicious, and I didn't know, because I'm used to being the one that runs in and is a chaos gremlin, and I couldn't do that with her, and so I was always like,
but yeah, one shots are like Tucker Arthur just said. One shots are very different. Versus long form. But I have found that even with the one shots, only going from the example of the one shots that we've been doing, that having the connection questions with Daggerheart, especially if you're pre-chatting about it in the week or so leading up to the game, that really does help everybody feel a little bit more bought in before the game actually starts. Whereas with D&D, unless you've decided to work with someone to make a buddy, you're kind of making your character in a vacuum,
Yeah. That's why I almost always try and be in cahoots with someone. Fitz and I have built many BFF characters together, and that's always more fun when you come in with someone. That co-building is, I'm always going to choose to do things with people rather than in a silo, so but kudos to our Discord channels, because when we do get these one shots going, that's all player driven. That's very rarely driven by myself or Matt.
Totally.
So good job, y'all.
Good job.
And just as a general tip for any newer players that are out there, whether it be in the TPD community or just catch this on YouTube later, if obviously it can be difficult to find the right table for you, the right people, but if you're playing with a group of people that you feel comfortable with, or you've played a few sessions with them and you begin to feel comfortable, the best advice I could give if you want to do that role playing and you just don't know how is just try. A lot of people have it in their mind that they have to have this 27-page backstory all planned out and know everything about their character beforehand. Not the case. I gave an in-character speech as my guardian character, Moxor, at our Daggerheart session last Saturday, where he waxed lyrical to this death spirit about how he was an instrument of war, and once this big bad had been felled, that he wouldn't be required anymore, and that's why he was fighting to get his other friend back from death. I didn't know Moxfor felt that way before that very moment. I started that speech and things came out of my mouth and I was like, that's where this is going, I guess. So
Yep.
you don't have to know everything beforehand. If you're comfortable with the people that you're playing with, just go for it. If you're with the right people, you're not going to get judged. You're just going to get yes-anded, or so just go for it.
100%.
Amy, I thought this way myself once upon a time. There was a time when I wouldn't play with anybody other than Fitz and Matt and Evan. And it was Fitz who pulled me into the campaign with Tay. And I was terrified and nervous for the first couple weeks. Best thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And now, cons or, things like that. Like, I'm never having as much fun at a con as I am with my home group, but it really can be a wonderful experience and you do get to meet people. So yeah. Try it
not
sometime.
every table you show up to is going to be a winner, but you never know. You might find a gem. Like that Thursday night game came from me and COVID needing a schedule and just signing up for a bunch of Tabletail games.
Yeah.
And then landing in that Thursday night and it just clicking. But I had played a bunch of other Tabletail games with a bunch of different other groups and a bunch of different adventures, and just one clicks with you, right? So you just, like I said, not every table is going to be the one. It's like dating or finding a therapist. You'll just eventually find one you like. I do want to ask though, because unfortunately we haven't heard much from Evan because of the audio stuff going on.
I stole the studio.
Yes, you did. But I want to give Evan a moment here where we clear some space. If you have any thoughts you want to share without feeling like you have to ride that mute button. Okay, great. Amazing.
Silent partner Evan Bivens, everyone.
I just didn't want him to feel left out because I know we're having, it's tougher with the mic situation on his end. I was making a platform for you, but if you don't want to take it, great.
Evan's actually in my basement with Matt. That's actually an elaborate puppet that I set up. So
okay,
yeah.
Got it.
Who's next? Are you taking me or Fitz down next? One by
You'll never
one.
take me alive.
Well, I don't think. Yeah, I was like, I think you're just playing into the plan at that point. Wow. Well, this was fun.
Yeah.
I think that we have. Well, we don't have to adhere to any dumb calendar that we don't want to, friends. No. So we can talk about scary stuff all year long. Yes. But I do think that we have a scary surprise planned for next week.
Yes.
The scary road goes on forever.
We love a good...
The party never ends.
I hope not. We love a good little scary moment.
Just keeps on trucking.
Keep on trucking.
Oh, man. Drew says, AK, quit acting like you're not in on the kidnapping plot. I don't know what you're talking about, Drew.
Drew, come get me in your camper.
Look at these
They'll never catch us alive.
Yeah, everybody trusts these cheeks, as Big Bro DM once pointed out to me. I do like Matt's help us.
Generated Evan is very quiet.
Very quiet. We're not. Are we? I don't think we're telling. Well, you'll find out. We're going to build some suspense about what's happening next week.
Yeah, but it'll be fun and spooky.
Definitely not spoopy though.
No, spooky with a K. Otherwise, Matt and Evan will murder us.
Quit.
But is
We'll
it tiny hands scary?
I know I don't have any tiny hands for me today, and I feel weird.
Yes.
No,
Speaking
Amy.
of which, okay, Amy, as we wrap up this, very silent, very deadly. That was a good use of the very, very demure meme.
Very
there. Good
mindful,
job.
very demure.
Okay, so if you are a member of our Patreon, or, if you're not, you should join, because I think signups for our November one-shots are soon, right?
Next weekend.
Next weekend. So if you want to get in and play with us in November, hop on our Patreon. And right now, you will have access to our unscripted episode with Matt.
Trapped in the Basement Bivens.
Trapped in the Basement Bivens, which actually the end of that episode does get a little scary in a fun way. So enjoy that. Episode 9 of Bud and Herb should drop on November 4th. We're going to put that out into the universe. Evan is working really hard on sound design and stuff, and we've got some ADR to do. It's coming out, and our goal is November 4th. But right now, this week, as of today, if you're a patron member, you will have the unscripted with Matt. On Monday, that unscripted will go public. So
I can't wait to find out how the Adventures of Bud and Herb ends, because I have no idea.
I know, that's what both you and Matt were saying, that we're like, we don't remember what happens because we got ADHD.
ADHD is fun, you guys.
Sorry to spoil part of episode 9 for you this week, AK.
It's okay. Well, this was fun. DT, thank you for coming and teaching us everything we needed to know.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Our career
It's
development,
podcast.
I feel like, series. That was a good training session we just had.
Yeah, I've been calling them Dungeons and Decks. With our
Big deck energy.
Big deck energy.
Big deck energy.
With these, Evan, we look forward to hearing your sweet dulcet tones again next week. I guess I'll move out of your office by then. Don't worry. This is creepy. I like what you're going for, actually.
It's quite nice.
These decks look huge.
Big decks.
Big decks.
Wow.
Anyways, with
Do
that,
I
folks.
go to the outro now?
You know what? Yeah.
All right.
I think
Goodbye,
it's time.
everybody.
Silent.